Hello, this is Stuart Watson from Scottish Enterprise, and I'm here to present a webinar on our Intellectual Asset Risk Register tool, which we would be happy for you to use with your businesses. So firstly, I'll start by saying what is a risk register. Now, some of you may have already seen these, but these are a document of all the risks within the business. It may be in relation to a project, and typically what it will do, it will identify what a risk is. So it could be a health and safety risk such as fire. It'll identify who's the owner, so who's the person responsible for managing that risk. It will assess and determine what the impact of that risk is. So with a fire, it would be a high impact likely, and the probability may be low given that they have put in steps to mitigate those risks. And the purpose of this tool is to apply the parameters of a risk register to intellectual assets and intellectual property. So at the core of it, what we have is an Excel based tool. It could easily be ported or changed to be used online. The purpose of it being in Excel is that it's fairly simple for you to send to a client or a business. You can use it in a presentation. You don't necessarily need to access the internet, but it could easily be made into a web-based tool. It can be used by a business without any forms of facilitation, so business will go through it themselves prior to a meeting. However, it is valuable when you have someone there, such as yourself, to explain what the different questions are and try and stimulate debate between members of a team. The purpose of the tool is to provide a risk register for a company, so it will outline the different forms of risks and allow the business to determine, is that actually a risk to the business? Is it one that they want to assign an owner, a probability and an impact? Now, I will say the tool cannot determine what the probability or the impact of a risk is. That's for the business to work through and identify themselves. And the key thing, similar to a number of tools, is it's there to raise questions. It's not to solve a problem, but it's there to provide a solution for a business to decide how they want to mitigate the risks that they have. And lastly, it's quite often most beneficial to have a number of staff members or teams complete the IU risk register and then compare the results. That's where you may find out that some teams, such as the marketing team, may think that the branding is a key area and a high risk, whereas other teams like the technical team may see it as a lower risk. So it's about that discussion to help to make sure the whole business understands where the risks lie. The IE risk register is grouped in the following areas. So these are usually in relation to their intellectual assets, such as their leadership, their knowledge, their culture, their brand and reputation, and of course, what may be most important to you is their intellectual property. I will stress that these subject matters are areas that we've decided to group together. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is the way you must run the tool and have the tool presented to a business. There's nothing to stop you from editing all of the areas of this tool to best suit the needs of your business. So you may decide that instead you want to focus on a IP risk register. So please feel free to modify all the different areas to cover patents, trademarks, registered designs and copyright, rather than being focusing on the wider intellectual assets if you think that would best suit who you're working with. So just as an example, here's a question in relation to brand and reputation. So the question says, does your company's branding communicate the value of your products and services clearly and powerfully? So what happens is a business will pick on the scale from 1 to 6. So 1 is they strongly disagree and 6 is they agree. So by saying they disagree with it, it means that they are saying that they don't think that the company's branding communicates the values of the products and services, whereas 6 meaning they do strongly agree to that statement. And as a result of completing the IE risk register tool, they'll press a button and they'll be presented with this list. The areas in red are what is determined to be a high risk. The areas in orange is what's deemed to be a medium risk, and the areas of green is a low risk. So over time, you may hopefully help a business to move lots of areas of red into the orange or green. From a technical perspective, it's a very simple tool. What's happening is that when you're answering the questions 1 or 2, it's then making that to be a higher risk. When it's 3 or 4, it's a medium risk, and 5 and 6 is a low risk. So simply put, this is organising this list in terms of being 1 at the top and 6 at the bottom, and applying a colour of red meaning a high risk to the ones that which the result is 1 and 2, an orange to the medium risks which is 3 and 4, and a green to the low risks which is 5 and 6. So now I'd like to show you the tool being used. You'll often be presented with the security warning. Because this has got some macros attached to it, you need to make sure that when you're using it with clients that they know that you need to go enable content, and that will allow you to do the sorting. So here you are presented with an outline of the tool and just saying that you must select from a range of 1 being strongly disagree to 6 being strongly agree. I will also stress that it does say that there's no right or wrong answer. It will reflect how you or the group feel about the relative strengths or weaknesses of the subject in the company. So if you click proceed to question 1, you simply have got all these different subject areas. So we go through this, and then from that you can select 1 being that you strongly disagree to 6 being you strongly agree. And then when they complete the tool and click view risk register, it simply reorders it for the business. So as you saw, all of the questions have been answered with 1, so that all are high risk because people strongly disagree with the statement. So let's just say, in relation to intellectual property, does your company protect its intellectual property, for example patents, trademarks, design rights and copyright? Well, let's just say you strongly agree to that statement. So that means it's going to be, behind the scenes, a low risk. When you click view risk register, you'll see that's moved from a red to a green, being it's a low risk. And what also has been done is that I've entered my name as being the staff member responsible for the risk. I've said that there is a high impact, that if you don't manage that risk appropriately, but the probability is low, because you could say that as you've got patents in place, the potential risk of a patent lapsing is probably going to have a high impact in the business, but maybe in discussions with the business you realise that they've got management methods in place, they've got processes to manage their IP portfolio, so therefore it's going to have a low probability of occurring. In addition to the IA risk register, the company is also presented with an action plan which outlines what the risks are. It's giving a description of why it's a risk and possible options for discussion and to aid in the creation of action plans. So not only do they understand what the area is, what the risk is to the business, but they're also suggested means to mitigate those risks. And here is an example of an action plan. And with this, what I have done is reorganised the areas based on what's a high, medium or low risk. You could decide to remove the colours and have this as a reference document, but ideally what you want to do is to enter more details within the action plan so the company has ownership of the risks. So simply for every risk that's been identified, it's got why it's a risk and actions to consider. And these are available to you in Word format to edit at your leisure. So in review, that's the IA risk register tool. It's fairly simple. And what I would say is that the way it's delivered in Excel can easily be formatted or changed, or you can put it online. You can change the questions and of course feel free to modify the action plan. You could also decide to remove the high, medium and low risks and order it to be a reference document so it wouldn't be changed based on what a client determines to be a risk. But of course I would say that it's not a tool you should just say to a company, it's online, go and use and here's the result. It does require facilitation to understand why it's a risk, to go through the tool, to raise the questions and then make sure that the company has an action plan which you will help them to deliver. So that's the end of this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to make contact with myself, which is Stuart Watson, and my email address is stuart.watson@scottent.co.uk. Thank you for listening.